So we're back with a season 12 director's take, and there's apparently going to be a lot of really important information on this. I haven't actually taken a look at it. I'm not streaming today, so this won't be a stream react. This will be just a typical first reaction from looking at things. And I've got a really freaking amazing scene that I have set up for this. Where is it? Look at it. Isn't that just beautiful? Okay, it's actually not that crazy, but yeah. Anyway, we're going to be taking a look at this. My expectations is I think there's going to be some stuff on Clash, Tanks, and Juno. I don't really have a lot more insight as to that, so I'm just seeing it from the outside looking in. We'll take a look here. So, hey all, Alec here. So this is Alec Dawson. This week, Director's Take will be taking a small reflection on the first half of season 12 and so on. We'll start with Juno. It's been such a joy seeing the community fall in love with their favorite Martian. We started our prototype early last year and went through many iterations to get the Juno you see today. Heck, we're still a little worried about lock-on damage ability, but y'all have seemed to acclimate well to combating her pulsar torpedoes, which I agree. I think I've seen a lot of content creators out there that kind of were freaking out initially about like lock-on damage and lock-on healing, and it's skillless, and it's actually pretty skillful about like when and how to manage it and how to use it. And then it's also extremely easy to outplay, which is I think is really important as well. And the burst damage is not that good. In fact, I kind of was disappointed that they moved away from the heal over time instead of more of the burst healing. I thought the heal over time was the more interesting aspect. But yeah, anyway, I think Pulsar Torpedoes has been like a fairly skillless ability. Since that first round of buffs, Junos are made in the safe side of strong zone we aim for, which is really good. The first round buffs I think were really crucial for that. While Juno finds success in most modes, she does particularly well on payload and hybrid maps such as Circuit Royale, King's Row, and Blizzard World. This is quite different than a hero like Lucio, whose best modes are particularly Flashpoint and Control. The reason why this is the case is the fact that there's just more space on these maps. And whereas Lucio was a speed-oriented character that didn't have a lot of range, so the more open the map, the less useful things like sound barrier, beat, less useful things like boop, wall climb, or wall ride, and even his damage was a lot worse in range. Juno, while being not a sniper character by any means, she just does provide more value than Lucio does in those situations. She has the speed that she can apply from range. She has ranged weapon, ranged healing, ranged torpedoes. Her ultimate has range if you stand in and shoot with it. It has universal range depending on those situations. And even her mobility allows her to reposition with a little bit more consistency and certainly a lot less difficulty than Lucio. And so I think that that's not really a huge surprise for me. The interesting thing is the Circuit Royale, where I actually think that the reason that she's doing well in Circuit Royale is, funnily enough, the fact that some of the other sniper supports are not that good right now. I think Babson not the strongest right now. So I actually think that while she doesn't have like a lot of poke damage and utility to bring to sniper matchups, I also think the sniper matchups are just kind of bad in Overwatch too. I think sniper heroes are bad. I think sniper tanks, sniper supports. I don't think that in general sniper compositions are all that strong. So something that provides a little bit of range pressure, like Juno, can do pretty well. So that's good to see, good to hear, and so on. Best modes of Flashpoint Control. There's some indication that her speed may be more useful in tighter corridors and less open spaces. And I think that's less to do with her, partly to do with her speed for sure, but it's also to do with she is a character that likes breath, but she can also suffer from breath. Like, it's a lot harder to counter a Sombra Tracer, Wrecking Ball, fill in the blank, on a Flashpoint map playing Juno. But it's a lot easier to avoid a hero like that when the corridors are a little bit more narrow, and there's also a little bit more direct available verticality. And something that both Flashpoint and Control have, at least on the paper, on surface, is they don't have near as much verticality as some of those other modes. And that's where a large portion of Juno's survivability comes. You can't really avoid a Sombra and Flashpoint. She's just going to spawn camp you. But in King's Row, okay, maybe she's still spawn camping King's Row, but at least it gets set up a little bit easier with King's Row on a lot of the points. Same thing goes for Blizzard World and so on. And then something like a Circuit Royale, well, it's just hard to set up behind on Circuit Royale. Okay, selling as composition goes, but if OWC is curious to setting the trend, expect to see Juno getting paired with an Ana Brigitte more in the weeks ahead, and I agree with that as well. You have a character that can provide speed boost to assist characters like Brigitte who do not have the speed boost, but then also the reason why we didn't really see Brig Lucio comps in pro metas is because it just didn't have enough healing for most tanks. It can for all tanks like Roadhog and Sigma, but you didn't really see Brig Lucio being played with Roadhog Sigma. It'd be Ramatras and Rhines and Orissas and Malgas, and now you actually have a tank that can output the healing, a lot more healing than a Lucio, while also providing the speed boost. Now, Lucio still has his niche, a lot of niches. Juno and Lucio both fill separate niches, but there's a lot more flexibility in those situations. I also really like pairing Juno with another support that actually heals her from range, and Ana and Brig both check that box as well, because if Juno gets in trouble, Ana and Brig can help her out. We're working on a Juno guide right now. I actually worked on it yesterday on stream. We're going to have that edited up on my main channel within the next week or two, so keep your eye out on that. It's extremely thorough. It's going to talk about all of this stuff a little bit more in detail. Overall, we're very happy with Juno's introduction. Your feedback led to the trial to plenty of changes. Fan art gameplay clips, It's current state. We're going to let her sit in her current state and observe how the elements of her kit mature over time and see if additional changes are needed. How I always play with Ultimate, thanks to the warm reception. Okay, so that's fine. I mean, obviously here I still have like a couple of complaints about like speed ring range. I would love for that to be a little bit further. I think the Ultimate is still tweaky, and I still think Torpedoes is way too myopic of an ability because it's so bad in single target. I think there's no real choice involved with it. But in terms of performance, I think pretty much perform well. And if you did see any of those tweaks in the future, I think you would have to tweak your kit elsewhere. So regardless, I'm a big fan of Juno, and we'll keep going here. So Clash. Now, you guys may have seen my recent video about why Clash doesn't work. And I think the idea of Clash is good, but it's just really not working in execution. I think the maps are great. The TLDR is that essentially taking space in enemy space really does not reward you whatsoever. And fighting in your own territory doesn't really punish you. So you could basically lose first fight, have defender's advantage for the entire Clash point, and then win the map by winning one neutral fight. It's kind of silly, basically. It kind of punishes you for taking space, which is completely antithetical to every single Overwatch game mode ever. One of the big additions in Season 12 is a new mode, Clash. Would contain more constant action. At one point in development, there was so much action that it became hard for folks to have a clear understanding of what point was active at any given time. It's fast and frantic, with communication of where the match stands is also much more clear. Your feedback was quite helpful, so we split the final points, the 3 segments, to make it clear to a clear single point area. So this is basically, I'm sorry if I'm zooming through this. If you guys can read this more slowly, you can read the article. But essentially getting 1 tick like 2 CP does give you a point now. Now that's nice, but unfortunately, they also extend the period of how long it takes to capture the 3rd point. It's 30 seconds instead of 20, I believe. I might be wrong with that one. But basically, it's just pushing the last point on Clash is just almost impossible, even though they've reduced it into thirds because of the extended time and also how unbelievably strong Defender's Advantage is on both of those maps. Even with some of those early changes, we think more tweaks are needed. Here are some of our current priorities in order for adjustments to Clash. Decrease current stomp rate in number matches with extremely short duration. This is a priority, but this is like, okay, then why are the stomps? So how are they going to do this? Incentivize attacking objectives A or E even more for the attackers. Okay. Increase overall feeling of fairness. Again, that's a consequence, not a solution. Keep Clash clear and understandable. Okay, so I guess these are goals, but this one is really separate. But well, I guess that's more of like a more specific with their thing. So we'll talk about how they're going to do that. I guess that's what they're doing right here. This is what you get for, again, first response here, guys. We're not sugarcoating this. Decrease current stomp rate. No one likes it when queue times exceed your match time, and some Clash matches end very quickly. I had a match posted in my Discord where it was 2:20. That was about the fastest I'd seen, but I've had at least half a dozen myself that were under 3.5 minutes. Always can be a very swinging game. I mean, we don't have to explain why swinging matches suck. Increasing attacking objectives A and E. I already talked about that already, so we won't elaborate on that. Increase overall feeling of fairness. Attacking the enemy side of the map should feel worthwhile, but currently there are games Clash you lose even though you felt your team had the upper hand for the majority of the match. Well, we've talked about that a lot. Okay. Keep Clash clear and understandable. While we think of some of Clash's blemishes will improve naturally, we've been testing tweaks to the mode with the priorities in mind. Some light changes will go into Season 12's mid-season patch, and our first full round of tweaks will be at the start of Season 13. Okay, so basically mid-season patch, which I'm actually not sure when that's coming. Is that a week, 2 weeks, something like that? Basically, we have the potential of sorting these things out. So that's good. In the meantime, I think the maps are really fun. Like, I think the game mode is kind of cringe, but the maps are really cool. I don't think they're like too strong, too weak for other. Like, they're pretty flexible with the characters that you can think. I think Anubis is a little bit more compressed, but Hanaoka especially just feels like you could play like legit any character and the character works. So, okay, Season 12 mid-season patch. We're looking at the survivability of tanks. Oh boy. At some point, I think the team is going to have to try and cement down what is their vision for 5v5 tank in this format. Is it to make tanks these raid bosses, but make them fair raid bosses? I'll give you guys an analogy. What's the difference between a Winston meta and a Roadhog meta? What's the difference between a Ryan meta and a Diva meta, right? Like, the difference is it feels like there's ways of outplaying those tanks. And the tank as well has ways of outplaying you, whereas a lot of times the more cringe tanks like Malga and Roadhog and so on, and even Diva to an extent, there's just like really simple ways of outplaying them, but they also have really simple ways of outplaying you. And if you're not like playing the right heroes, you can't counter the tank. And I think that's like really, really rough identity of the tank. So I'm hoping that at some point, I know we have the 66 test coming up, but we could use if you are a 6v6er, let's use this 5v5 format as like a big experimental mode until we get to that point of like, what if we had raid boss tanks, but it was like an actual, like an increased level of skill, like you had to block the CD with a bubble, right? You didn't just sit there and matrix for 3.5 seconds, right? So like, how are they going to do that? The other thing they could do, which is reduce the visual footprint of the tanks. And I think this one's the least likely to happen, or discourage the psychology of shooting an armored target. Or there's like lots of ways that they could do to basically make it. So the problem is that if you nerf tank survivability here, like you're just basically moving the bar up and down without actually like coming to a solution. I mean, did tanks feel better before they had their survivability buffed? No. So what's the end goal here? Like, what we should at least be trying things, I feel like, in the meantime, because otherwise this is just kind of like endlessly pandering to one side without really coming into a solution here. And the problem is that tank is overtuned. The problem is that tank is also really easy to focus down. So you need to either deal with one of the other or both. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's not possible in a 5v5 format. You might be right, but we could at least be experimenting and learning things that can carry over into 6v6, because, you know, finding exactly how strong tanks need to be in 6v6 is also really important. And what is fair counterplay for Malga in 6v6? Because let me tell you something, as somebody who's played 20-something hours in the 6v6 mode, Malga without the right support still feels pretty darn bad. And that goes for Roadhog, and that goes for a lot of other characters too. So I think, like, in the meantime, like, what can we be experimenting? What can we be learning? And I do think things like figuring out exactly how we want armor to feel is important, but I think there's a lot more than that. Just like looking at general survivability, I'm a little bit concerned about this, so we'll see. I'm glad they're nerfing tanks. They are way overtuned, but again, what's the end goal? I hope it's not just a numbers tweak. Since a bigger tank in patch 2.11, tank survivability shot up, and it felt very difficult to punish tanks, D.Va especially. We want to pull the tank back slightly, looking especially at the power and armor and some of the defense passives given to the tank role. That's good. Expect those changes to more to drop next week. Okay, so next week. Okay. Beyond the mid-season balance changes, we're currently experimenting with reducing the effectiveness of certain hero counters, such as beam damage against a subset of tanks while they're using their defensive abilities. Ooh. That's interesting. So, you know, haters gonna hate, but this is a good thing. This is good for 6v6 too. This opens up more options when you're playing D.Va in 6v6 and they counterpick you with Symmetra or Zarya. You know, you do have more options, but it's still frustrating, and it limits how powerful we can make D.Va, because she's still going to be vulnerable to those beam situations. Like, you can buff D.Va to high heaven, but she's still going to be vulnerable to Zarya. So addressing that might be useful. Summer's been a hot topic lately. We're looking at some changes to her stealth duration. Oh, yay. Let's go. Love to hear that. That's been kind of what's limiting Summer from being actually a fair and fun hero, is the fact that she can just set up spawn camp whenever. You can look forward to these updates, mid-season update, World of Warcraft special cosmetic event. If you guys want to check that one out, there's a couple of new skins, which are pretty cool. Some of them are pretty bad, but some of them are also pretty good. So not pretty bad. They're just maybe not my cup of tea. So you guys draw your own judgment from that one. Well, large gust to win. Okay, jeez, these guys are the worst. Anyway, that's about all I got. I would say pretty much nothing but good things to say here. The only negative thing I would say is really more on bringing up the thing that's already there. Like, this isn't like negative because it's a bad thing. It's a reminder that we may still not have an idea of exactly what we want to be doing with tanks while we're trying things out. And to be fair, it is an extremely difficult thing to do, whether it is solving and balancing around queue times or format or engine or whatever else. But I hope in the meantime we're able to figure some things out. So that's about all I got. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.